Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys joining me for a much requested on the water video today. And what I'm going to do today, guys, it's the second week of April at the time I filmed this video. I'm going to take you guys out on the lake. I'm going to show you the perfect April type of fishing area you want to look for. This is the type of places that bass move in the whole month of April, and I'm going to show you what that looks like and give you guys some tips and advice on how to fish it, techniques, and how to approach it in today's video. Also, guys, you can see I got my Vexus 1980 aluminum rig right here. You guys may have heard, but we're going to have this boat for sale through Branson West Marine in Branson, Missouri, coming up this June. We've already had a bunch of people interested in it, so if you guys are interested in purchasing this boat, just give Branson West Marine a call. Contact Robbie or Jim there for information. They can get you set up. And guys, whoever buys it, I'll take you out here on Table Rock Lake personally in the boat, show you guys how to run it. And you guys can put a deposit down on it now, and if you guys are interested in it. But guys, I just absolutely love this thing. And underneath the wrap, it's a silver, black, and red. So it's a super sharp boat. We can get you pictures of it if you want. So just want to let you guys know that. So anyway, guys, here we go. Let's take a look at all this. Okay guys, we got to our first spot here. Now I'm going to show you what is a perfect springtime bass fishing location in terms of all three parts of the springtime of the year: the pre-spawn, the spawn, and the post-spawn. Now what you have here is this is a major creek arm we're in right here, just a big creek arm off the lake. And this right here that we're getting ready to go into is a little cove off of the creek. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start out here on the main part of the creek arm, and I'm going to run you guys through all the way to the back and explain to y'all the transition, how bass move through different phases of the spring, and some of my favorite techniques. So I'm going to turn the camera around here and we're going to go through this. So start out here. Now here is the point right here. This is the point leading into this cove that we're going to go into, and here's the main creek bank leading up to this point right here. Okay, now this is sort of like the progression. During the pre-spawn, like when the water temperatures in the 40s and 50s, the bass are going to be on this main creek arm port. They're not going to be as much back in these coves here, so they're going to be more on the main banks right here. Now, a lot of these banks can be bluff banks, channel banks, whatever, a little bit deeper water, but they like to hang out here in different depth ranges depending upon the water clarity. Sometimes they suspend, sometimes they're shallower, but from about January until, say, late March, this is the type of areas they go into. Now, as it warms up a little bit and the water temperature starts to creep up into the 50s more, these fish will set up here on these secondary points. Now, this is what's called a secondary point, which is a creek point leading into a cove. Now, this is a high percentage area because bass will actually use this particular point in all three phases of the spawn. Now, in the pre-spawn period, like when the water's in the 50s, a lot of times you'll get out a little bit deeper off the point here, throw an Alabama rig, throw a jerk bait, something like that, maybe a swim bait. Really good way to catch them, again, depending upon the water clarity. And as the progression takes place, and say we're getting up like to now, like the mid part of April, as you start getting into April and that water temperature starts creeping up more into the upper 50s, and they're starting to get into that 60-degree range, these bass will migrate from the main channel to the secondary point here, and then they're going to start moving back into the cove here. Now, one of my favorite ways as they're making their way to the back of the cove to spawn is to fish these just the cove banks themselves. There doesn't have to be any cover on it. But I like to go along these areas right here, and probably my favorite technique, guys, is to throw either like a swing head jig or a shaky head, something like that, fishing 5 to 10 feet deep, working my way down towards the back of this thing. Also, sometimes if you got a little bit more stained water, sometimes you can throw like a crankbait or a lipless crankbait. But one of the top techniques is to fish like a shaky head, or maybe even a Ned rig and through here. Another thing that works really good is some type of like a light Carolina rig. Like I call it like the peed rig that I talked about, fishing like a little centipede or something with a split shot on it. But these fish that are on, you know, there's the point there, and as they come through the bank here, these fish are actually scouting for areas to bed. Now they'll be cruising through here, they'll be looking, they'll be feeding, they'll be roaming, but they're basically looking for prime suitable spawning habitat. Now once that water temperature starts hitting 60 degrees, which we have right now, as you can see on my temperature gauge, these fish are going to actively start bedding. And normally what I do once that water temperature sits 60 is I start fishing about now in the back one half of these coves. Now the first thing that I like to do is I like to throw like a floating worm or soft plastic jerk bait like a fluke or something to try to locate the fish. And once I get some activity as far as fish following that floating worm or something, I'll take a wacky rig and I'll slowly start working my way down these flatter banks leading towards the back here with that wacky rig. It's a really good way to catch them. Sometimes you know, a light shaky head's going to work good. And once you start getting towards the back of the cove here, you know, it doesn't matter the angle of the bank or whatever, as long as you got a hard bottom, this is going to be where a lot of the spawning activity occurs. In fact, probably 75% of the spawning activity in these areas is going to be from this point to the back of the cove there. Now, you guys know my opinion on spawning fish. They're fun to look at. I like to leave them alone. I don't like to jack with them. But this is the type of area that they're going to be spawning in, these very back coves here. Now, what happens is after they get done spawning, everything sort of reverses, because once they get done spawning, they sort of hang out in these coves a little bit, and they'll gradually start working their way back out. And a lot of times they're feeding. They're up in here garden fry. There's still a lot of fish shallow, you know, even after they get done spawning, and they're slowly going to make their way back out, back towards the main lake point, or back towards the secondary point here. So what happens is, say for example, these fish have been back in here spawning, water temperature 60, 65 degrees, they're back in here for a week or two, they do their thing. Those same fish that have been working their way back in here, they start moving back out to this secondary point. Now this secondary point is going to be a prime post-spawn area for several different weeks. A lot of different ways to catch them. Probably one of my favorite ways to catch them during the post-spawn is to throw like a walking topwater out on these points. Football head jig's good, deep crankbait, you know, something along those lines. And they're gonna hang out on these secondary points here probably until that water temperature starts getting about 75 degrees, or you start getting into like the end of May. And once they get towards the end of May and that water temperature starts warming up, you know, they're done garden fry, then they start dispersing all through the creek again, and they go out there and they start suspend. Some of them will suspend, some of them will, you know, get deeper, some of them will get on a boat dock over there, and the whole cycle repeats itself. Okay guys, there's just a really general overview of sort of the progression and some good areas in the spring. Anytime you're fishing in the springtime of the year, the cove that I just explained to you guys is a prime area. And I know every lake across the country, your lake's set up differently, so you're gonna have different type of rock compositions, you're gonna have different type of water clarities, you're gonna have, you know, different bank angles, so you sort of have to adjust your techniques according to that. It's like if you're in an off-colored lake that's got dirty water, obviously those fish are going to be tighter to the bank, and you're going to be using stuff more like Texas rig lizards and Texas rig creature baits and spinner baits. But as it gets cleaner, like we're on Table Rock Lake today, you know, that opens up the technique to, you know, your more finessey stuff and swim baits and, you know, just really, you know, some of the key, you know, spring type lures. But anyway guys, just a little video there. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope it helps you guys catch some, and we'll talk later.